You are coming to us still live here in Cape Town, outside the City Hall. This is now a parliamentary precinct ahead of tonight's State of the Nation address. Thank you very much for joining us. And joining me now this hour on eNCA is the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. That's Ronald Lamola. Good afternoon, Minister. Welcome to eNCA.
Good afternoon, brother.
It's a busy time for you. Just an overriding question first. We were driving from Johannesburg since Tuesday with my colleagues, just talking to people in ordinary small towns, not your usual places where we at eNCA would go, like we'll go to the usual places in Joburg, Durban, Polokwane, or Cape Town, or Gqeberha, and so on, and Pretoria. But we just thought we just want to go to the smaller towns. And there's one overriding concern, Carl, the energy crisis. Is that top of mind for the Cabinet?
Yes, definitely it is top of mind for the Cabinet, and the President will speak about it in detail on load shedding, and he will announce groundbreaking and decisive action to respond to this electricity crisis.
That's good to hear, because the sentiment is we have very good policies. This government has got good policies. It's got good. We've got good laws, and we have a number of teams that have been set up, either as task teams or advisory councils. We have enough of that. What we need is action. Are we going to hear about action, implementable action?
Yes, and as you say, those teams are aimed to crack, to ensure that there is execution and there is implementation and, from all the departments that are responsible, from environmental affairs, energy, DPE, and all the relevant departments, including South African stakeholders, to ensure that indeed we respond to this electricity crisis, and we respond to the load shedding, including the impact it has on household consumers countrywide. And
businesses, small businesses and big businesses. Yes. Another very stubborn challenge is youth unemployment. A couple of young people I personally spoke to on the way here through the Free State are saying, just ask the President to create jobs for us.
Yeah, that's true. That is also top of the Cabinet's agenda, so that we firstly have to respond to the economic challenge, and when you have an economy that is responding, you will also then respond to the unemployment crisis in the country emerging from COVID. And as you are aware, before the rolling blackouts, there were some green shoots that were beginning to show. So as we respond to the load shedding and the electricity crisis, the aim is that we must stabilize and continue from those green shoots the foundation that has already been laid.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that will fall under your purview as Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, and those will fall under two categories. In my view, corruption is one of them, and the other one is the safety of South Africans. Because last year, and this has been very good, that what the government has prepared for us to highlight some of the key things he promised, the President promised in last year's State of the Nation address. Now, under corruption, where it comes to courts, for example, there was a promise to protect. Let's start there, to protect whistleblowers. And we know what has happened to some of the whistleblowers. Several of them that I've interviewed and my colleagues have interviewed are in hiding. I mean, Babita Deokaran is dead. And just the other day, I spoke to Mafangoye, who blew the whistle in Prasa. She's been an outcast, and her life is in a mess. That doesn't have a tick on my thing. Why is it proving so hard to do the right thing for whistleblowers in terms of protecting them and really making sure that they don't suffer?
Yeah, it's because there's a loophole in terms of the law of Witness Protection Act, which only says it governs witnesses that are already in the process to testify in court. And also the Protected Disclosure Act does not give sufficient cover to that. So that is the reason we're in the process to review both the Witness Protection Act and also the Protected Disclosure Act, so that we're able to cover and close that loophole. But in the meantime, we are looking at an interim measure. What is it that in the meantime that government and also the private sector can respond to?
Will the President outline some of the thinking? Because he mentioned whistleblowing himself. Recently when he was talking, he also talked about the importance of whistleblowers. Will he touch on it tonight? Are you aware if he's going to speak about it?
No, he won't, because it is at a very embryo developmental stage. He will only be able to touch on it when there is a concrete intervention in the space. But I am able to say that there there is that discussion to see what is the interim measure that we can attend to while we are attending to the issue of review of the regulatory framework. Because as you know, the regulatory framework can take some time, but we need now an interim measure. That is what we are working on.
Are you able to expedite that? Because it is an urgent matter, because people's lives are at stake.
Yes,
the whistleblowers have done a great service to this country by exposing corruption, but their lives are in danger.
Yes, we are able to. I can say with certainty that there is something in the pipeline that we'll be able to announce when everything has been ironed out.
Okay, now when it comes to this other point, which doesn't have a tick here, this is under the fighting corruption thing. It's about a court, and it talks about finalized discussions with the judiciary for the creation of special court roles for state capture and corruption causes. And there's no tick there. Why?
Yeah, there is discussion between the relevant authorities, the NPA and the heads of courts, with regards to the specialized court role. As you might have seen, some of the cases are already in court, the Nolano one, and there are others as they come into the pipeline. Now, it's very few, but as they come into the pipeline, I'm sure that there will be a concrete process that will ensure that there is that prioritization of those court cases. But you must also be aware, Braden, that the court role has got a huge backlog. So you also need to do it in a manner that shows that all matters are still seen as serious and treated equally.
So that waiting, don't wait for too long as well.
Yes. So that is the whole compactum that they are engaging on, so that there is a solution. The matters are seen going through and justice is done.
But there is an appreciation by yourself and the President and your colleagues in Cabinet that matters that relate to what came out of the State Capture Commission. I mean, the country paid almost R1 billion over the years that State Capture Commission was there. Its recommendations were made public by government, and the President presented them to Parliament. Is there an appreciation that those cases, yes, there's a backlog, but they should in a way be prioritized, just to give this country hope that there is no more space for any corruption at the level of state? We're not going to allow the stealing and looting of resources anymore.
Yes, Braden. Hence I said there's already a case that is ongoing now, and the process of engagement with the heads of the courts and the NPA is there, which will definitely ensure that the matters are handled as expeditiously as possible. But we want to assure South Africans that that should not be done in a manner that then compromise all the other cases that the courts are attending to. So there is appreciation. Hence, there is resources that has been dedicated to this, including to give additional resources to the NPA and the law enforcement agencies. It's aimed to show that political will and to ensure that they are able to do their job.
Yeah, what constraints could you face? The last time I interviewed you, Minister, we were talking about how the NPA is funded, and you assured us that the country, that you are giving them 100% of their budget. But all these other agencies that fall under the justice cluster need to be well resourced. Will there be any constraints when it comes to money?
At this stage, yes, there have been, but we've been able to unlock such constraints, particularly for the NPA. And I think when the budget is being presented, it will be more apparent and clear that the state is taking full responsibility to fund the NPA as a sovereign importance for the country. But we also open up to say where, for example, we need skills, forensic data skills, chartered accountants, forensic skills, money laundering, wiring, and so forth. There are skills that we may not have within the state. So we also have mechanisms through which the NPA can tap into the skills in the private sector, and that mechanism is done through the National Treasury regulations, and it will also ensure that the NPA is insulated from any form of perception of bias or capture or any other thing, but only to be able to tap into such skills that they may need. Yeah,
have they reported to you about the efforts to extradite the Gupta brothers from Dubai since they were arrested? What's the latest you can tell us about that, Minister?
Is that we are waiting for a court date in the UAE, and as soon as the court in the UAE sits and decide on the matter, we are confident that through the diplomatic and good mutual relations that we have with the UAE, they will definitely come back to South Africa to account. So it's just a matter of time. I'm unable to say by tomorrow or on this date, but I am confident that it's just a matter of time before such a decision.
And they remain in custody in the UAE?
Yes, they remain in custody.
Okay. The final question to you now: when you sit with the justice challenges and correctional services challenges in our country, we now and again hear about overcrowding in prisons, for example, and I don't know how that will be addressed going forward, because I mean we know crime is at unacceptably high levels in our country. Police do their job very well, and then you end up with overcrowding on the other side. That issue, how is it being addressed, Minister?
Yes, there are various features that we are looking into to address overcrowding. The one of them is that there must be no crime. The second one is to manage it when they are inside our facilities through spreading across the country in an equal way, but also to ensure that they also undergo processes of rehabilitation where we teach them a lot of skills so that when they get released, they don't come back. Skills like plumbing.
And the awaiting trial prisoners, sometimes they say that's where the blockage is. Many of these criminals are arrested, they're still awaiting trial, and then it becomes too overcrowded.
Yes, there is a backlog in that regard. You'll know that it comes from the COVID-19 period, where sometimes the court could not really function and so forth. But there is work that is underway for most of the trials to go through now. As they are being finalized, it helps to clear the backlog, and some of them that have got bails, their projects to look at how do we, the process assist those that have got bail and they can't afford and so forth. So there is a lot of work that is being done in that regard. Okay,
this is the final question in a matter that I've had an interest in, and I've mentioned it to you before. The extradition of Manuel Cheng, the former Mozambican finance minister, who still remains in a South African jail since December 2018. There's been court cases and court cases. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, the latest is that we're currently studying the Supreme Court of Appeal case judgment, which we had a decision that he must be extradited to the US, and once the period is over, whether either of the parties wants to appeal or not, when there's certainty, we will be able to take a decision.
Thank you very much. That's Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Ronald Lamola. Like me, he's wearing a suit, he's ready for tonight's State of the Nation address. Although it's very hot here in Cape Town, he seems pretty much relaxed, and he confidently tells us that what we'll hear tonight, Masigo, is the President saying these are the actions we're now going to be implementing. So we're going to have to wait and see on a number of issues what Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, the President of the Republic, will outline in the 2023 edition of the State of the Nation address.